The Steelers have a center. Well, actually, they have two centers. Neither of them are good, but they have two centers. As of Friday, BJ Finney is reportedly signing with the Steelers on a one-year deal, which adds him to the roster that already includes JC Hassenauer, and that's all that they have at center. The Steelers are still in trouble when it comes to the offensive line. BJ Finney does not fix anything. All it essentially does is add another, Stefan Wisniewski. Nobody that's coming in and competing for a starting job, but somebody that's going to be there just in case the Steelers can't find somebody in the NFL draft, they can't find a bigger name for cheap in free agency, or nobody else pans out. Just toss BJ Finney in there and move on. That's what they're at right now. That's where the Steelers are. They don't look at this, at least I hope they're not looking at this as the solution for a year so that they could wait and then go draft a center in an earlier round next season. The Steelers are all in right now. Ben Roethlisberger came back for one more year to win a Super Bowl, not to wait out a year until he gets a new good center. And yes, replacing Marquise Pouncey is hard. It's difficult. You're not going to do that overnight, but you're definitely not going to do that with JC Hassenauer and BJ Finney, which is the only options. If you're going to look at either of them right now, I would look at it like this. BJ Finney is a potential cut once summer comes. He's a guy who's been around, but he's 29 years old. He's essentially the same thing as JC Hassenauer, just 4 or 5 years older, and didn't do much of last season. In 2020, BJ Finney played less than JC Hassenauer, and that says a lot. Hassenauer is a guy who could be a swing guard. He proved himself a little bit last year. Wasn't a starter, isn't a starter moving forward, but he's a guy that could come in and play either left or right guard or center when you need to. Essentially what BJ Finney was before BJ Finney set off to Seattle to try to be a starting offensive lineman, and it didn't work. If he stayed in Pittsburgh, that's a whole new story. We're here, BJ Finney's the center. There's nothing else to talk about. But because he left, now there's speculation. And that speculation is that BJ Finney lost a little bit of his touch. He got older. He didn't have a good year. He didn't adapt well once he left Pittsburgh. Remember, the grass is not always greener on the other side. So now he's back on a one-year deal, kind of like a prove-it thing. He'll compete for the job. JC Hassenauer will compete for the job. And then hopefully there will be another name in there that is not competing, but basically coming in to start. Either JC or BJ have to prove themselves over whoever else the Steelers add, because that's where they're at right now. You can't go into a season where you're trying to win a Super Bowl and say we have two mediocre centers. There you go. They still need to draft a center. That's a definite. Needs to be in a high round. That's also a definite. And if they don't plan on doing it in the NFL draft, or if they don't feel that they could get a guy like Creed Humphreys, then you attack free agency and you make a splash signing. That's the only way you go about this. Otherwise, the Steelers are in trouble because JC Hassenauer and BJ Finney are not the answer to an offensive line. Sorry.